I'm on a family holiday and it's a little bit overcast today. Again, I'm in Canada and it's lovely to be here. So today is a bit different, and the reason I want to sort of make a film today is that I've been speaking a lot about anxiety over the last few years, and I feel that depression's been a little bit neglected. And so I'm going to spend some time thinking about depression and making some videos that really speak to how you can help yourself if you feel depressed. Now, one of the most natural and, I guess in a sense, easy to achieve treatment strategies for depression is activity, physical activity. And I'll perhaps talk about that in another film. But the second most, easy to achieve, well, seems like easy to achieve strategy for depression is more engagement with what I call external reality. Now this is external reality, of course, and more engagement with external reality means doing more things in the external world, because depression is a disorder of the internal world that then leaks out to the external world to such an extent that you do less and less and less, and this leads to a certain feeling of helplessness, of hopelessness, of passivity and avoidance. And the more we avoid, the more we recede into ourselves, and therefore the more depressed we're able to be. So your brain is always looking for novelty. Now it turns out, fortuitously, that it's a bit of an overcast day. There's no weather coming in really, and Canada does get a bit of weather. So I'm going to have an opportunity to have a flying lesson. Now, talk about novelty. I used to say to my son, he just was 19 a couple of days ago, and when he was young, we used to make adventures. We'd try and have adventures. We'd, try to treasure hunt and find, the interestingness in things. And I used to have this phrase when we saw something that was unusual, say, well, you don't see that every day. And so a flying lesson isn't something that you do every day, and so it's a little bit of novelty, and it's an adventure. So let's see how it turns out.
Quebec Sierra Mike, runway 01, wind 0, correction 0105, altimeter 29er, 2. Roger, runway 07. There's traffic, about a 3-mile final for runway 19 for the overshoot. Cessna 172.
To the United States. Yeah. So we had a ride over the Thousand Islands. We got to the Thousand Islands Bridge and then we crossed into the United States. I don't think it counts if you don't land. And then we went along to the, I think the St. Lawrence Bridge. Then we came back. But isn't it amazing that from the 2,000 feet, the tiny little islands that they managed to put a house on. And I kept thinking I was seeing the smallest island and the smallest house, but then there was another smaller island and another smaller house. Fabulous. Well, thank you, Keith, for my flying lesson. It was a bit bumpy, I have to say, a little bit of turbulence. It's because it's a little bit later in the day. Perhaps we'll go again in the earlier morning when the air's a bit smoother. So that's it for the flying lesson. For now, let's catch up again in a minute. So I had my flying lesson and it was really interesting. It was quite bumpy, so I hope the video turns out okay. But here's the thing, it was just a bit different. And as I said before, it's something that you don't do every day. Now, I often think about ruts in the road. Are you familiar with the concept of a rut? A rut is like an indentation in the road or the paving or the pathway. And in the old days, wagon wheels would go in ruts, and I guess the ruts would be really quite deep. So I always think about this question, how the heck do you get your wagon out of a rut? You get a wagon wheel, because if the rut's like 6 inches or, I don't know, some number of centimeters deep, you can't just pull it out of the rut because it's in the rut. So it seems to me that wagoneers must have had a piece of wood that they carry with them, or a couple of pieces of wood, and they fill the rut hole, and then they wheel they pull the wheel up over the top using the piece of wood to get out of the rut, and then they turn the wagon. They must have had to do that. I just can't see another way of doing it, otherwise you always are in the rut. And interestingly, kind of wagon ruts were the first sort of model, if you like, or at least it's thought they were the first model for railway tracks, because railway tracks, if you think about it, are ruts in the road which are reversed, so they're up as opposed to being down. So I think doing something different is a bit like having a piece of wood that you put in the rut to be able to change your direction. It doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter what kind of wood you use, it doesn't matter what kind of thing, as long as you fill the rut or get out of the rut, right? So novelty is one of those ways of getting out of the rut of depression. Activity is another way of getting out of the rut of depression. Doing anything different. So here's like a homework in a sense, right? Every single day, do one thing different from the day before. It can be anything. It could be have a different sauce on your pasta, or you know, drink a different kind of tea, or drink a different kind of coffee, or walk a slightly different way, or drive a slightly different way, or just change the way that you write a particular word. It can be anything, because anything is a way of getting out of the rut, and getting out of the rut is progressive. Staying in the rut, well, of course, you have to go where the rut goes, and you're always going to be, to an extent, trapped by the rut. So I hope you find this interesting. Please like and subscribe, and thanks for taking the time to watch and listen.